difference between trim and tilt in a boat with a trimmable drive, like an outboard or a stern drive. When we talk about trim, we're talking about a boat's running angle, how high its bow is in the sky. And if you're not sure how to trim your boat, we happen to have a really good video on how to trim a power boat right here on the Boat US YouTube channel. On a modern power boat, trim can be controlled with trim tabs, or if your boat doesn't have tabs, the angle of the drive unit. Look at the difference with these outboards tilted all the way up versus tilting them all the way down. Big change in the trim. One thing we need to warn you about, folks, different manufacturers sometimes mount the buttons to show you different things. Every boat is its own individual, and you have to learn how to use the trim on your boat. A quick example, on some boats the trim tabs have a little button that points down, and that tells you when you push the trim tabs in that position down, you trim the bow down. Well, other manufacturers use the same button, they mount it the other way to tell you that you're dropping the trim lower when you press the down button. You have to be aware that every boat is different and get used to your own. Here's another thing that confuses people sometimes. People not only talk about trimming up and down, they talk about trimming in and out. Well, this is a pretty easy one to wrap your head around, folks. When people talk about trimming the motors in, that's the same as down. It's moving the motor in closer to the transom of the boat. When they talk about trimming it out, it's trimming it up, farther away from the transom of the boat. And there's yet another spot where terminology messes people up sometimes when it comes to trim and tilt. What's the difference between trim and tilt in the first place? Aren't they the same thing? Well, not really. When you're trimming the boat as you're running, that motor has a certain range you don't want to go beyond. When you're tilting the motor, it's actually bringing it up above that range. Where you don't want to run the boat, it's purely for storage and or trailering purposes. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, I'm moving the motor. Oh, did you hear that difference? Now we're in tilt mode. You can see, obviously, the propeller's now out of the water. This is not a position you would ever want to run this boat in. It'll come up even more. So I can, say, lift the motors out of the water while the boat's moored without them getting growth on them. But when I'm actually running the boat, listen for the difference. There it is. Hear that? That's the hydraulic rams kicking in, and that's telling me that the motor is in a position it can run. Remember, people, you never want to run your boat with the motors in a tilt position. You always want them down where you're actually trimming. In fact, it should also be noted that you probably don't want a trailer with them tilted up into a tilt position, but that varies from boat to boat and rig to rig. Fortunately, folks, don't worry, we've got an entire series of videos on trailering you can check out too. Now that the boat's securely in the slip, I can trim these motors up and then tilt them all the way up. Get those drive units out of the water, they won't get any growth on them, and there we go. Well, folks, I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to click on the button below to subscribe to the Boat US YouTube channel, and by all means, leave us your comments.